Imagine you are staying in the Stanley Hotel, high up in the Rocky Mountains, looking down over Colorado. Grand white colonial architecture and its symmetrical designs. You are standing just outside the historical music room, just off the main lobby. The music room is empty and dark. The hotel is silent, and there, in the silence, you hear piano notes echoing out from the music room. Nobody is in there. Nobody is around. This is one of many chilling experiences that many people have claimed to have while staying in the Stanley Hotel, one of the alleged most haunted places in the world, and the hotel that inspired Stephen King's The Shining. Like and subscribe. If you enjoy my content, stay tuned and enjoy. There is one bedroom in particular that has become famous for its alleged hauntings in the Stanley Hotel. Room 217, Spirited Grand King. It is the room Stephen King and his wife Tabitha stayed in for one night whilst there. In 1974, while Stephen King was struggling with alcoholism, the couple stayed for one night in the hotel. It wasn't too far, considering they were living in Boulder, Colorado at the time for a year. They checked into the hotel and were shocked to find they were the only guests actually staying there. They were the only guests in the enormous hotel. All around them were large mazes of corridors with empty rooms. The hotel had just been getting ready to close for the winter season, and all the other guests were checking out, and the staff were surprised to see them checking in. King and Tabitha were served their dinner alone in the dining room, the background orchestra playing, the only sound to be heard, with only their table being set up to be used, and all the other chairs stacked onto the tables. It just made it all the more obvious that they were the only guests there. With the music echoing softly through the desolate halls, King felt as if he was meant to stay there at that time. It was when he and Tabitha went to bed that night that ideas for The Shining really started to come into play. That night, King had a terrifying dream, which he awoke from with a tremendous jerk and almost fell out of bed from. He was covered in sweat. He had dreamt that his young son was being chased down the long, sprawling halls of the hotel by a fire hose, looking back over his shoulder, eyes wide with terror, and screaming as he hurried to get away. King, the dream still fresh and vivid in his mind, lit himself a cigarette and sat on a chair and looked out his window over the Rockies. He claims that by the time his cigarette was done, he had the idea of The Shining. Little did King know at the time, but room 217 had previously been the site of a gas explosion in 1911. On June 25, 1911, a power outage occurred in the hotel. To make their way around in the dark, staff had to light backup Acelite lamps. In room 217, though, there was a gas leak. At terrible timing, head chambermaid Elizabeth Wilson entered the room with a lit candle. As a result, there was a massive gas explosion, the blast being so powerful that Elizabeth fell through the floor to the dining room below. Remarkably, the only real injury sustained was that both her ankles were broken, and she survived and lived for many more decades, continuing to work at the hotel. 7 other staff were also injured. Now Elizabeth's ghost is said to haunt room 217. Allegedly, visitors have reported that their suitcases get unpacked mysteriously, and clothes get folded and moved around without anyone actually touching them, as if by an unseen force. It is believed to be the work of Elizabeth. Other stories tell of her telling unmarried couples to sleep separately and maybe creating a cold barrier between them. Her ghost is described as being quite polite and friendly. One story is that actor Jim Carrey checked into the Stanley in 1994 while filming Dumb and Dumber and stayed in room 217. Only about 3 hours after checking in, he mysteriously checked out. Staff described him as being visibly shaken and leaving in a hurry. To this day, he has refused to publicly admit as to why he left in such a rush and as to what happened in that room. There is another spot in the hotel that is widely believed to be haunted, and also many believe it to be a portal or vortex of some sort. It is the Grand Staircase, built in 1909, a historic wooden and white-railed centerpiece with classic colonial architecture. Staff and guests alike have reported seeing mysterious figures on the stairs, including the founder of the hotel and his wife, Freelan Oscar Stanley and Flora Jane Record Tilestone Stanley, dressed in formal vintage clothing. Mysterious light orbs, shadows, and blurry figures that look like people have been seen, many caught on camera, as well as a clear photograph of a young girl standing on the staircase who nobody had seen present at the time the photo was taken. It has been nicknamed the Vortex, believed to be a sort of spiritual highway or paranormal tunnel, that being the reason why many ghosts and lost spirits are seen there. Then there's the music room, the concert hall where Flora Stanley, who was a pianist, used to spend her time. She loved the Steinway grand piano which her husband had bought her on the grand opening day of the hotel, and she would often play there. To this day, long after guests have retreated to their rooms and the hall is quiet and empty, and the musicians have left, the sound of classical piano echoing out of the music room can be heard, as if Flora continues to keep up her love of music in the Stanley. I hope you enjoyed this video about the Stanley Hotel, its mysterious sightings and recurring paranormal events, the hotel that inspired Stephen King's classic The Shining. Like and subscribe. If you enjoy my content, stay tuned and enjoy.